Another huge aspect to image restoration and manipulation is trying to balance an image. If you see this image right here, it is way too orange. So it looks like she's got on some bad pancake makeup from the 1970s. So we need to try and balance that out. And the first thing I would do would be image adjustments, and sure, I'll try auto color. And in my opinion, that makes her skin look way too cyan. And being able to see these subtle colors is an acquired skill. But I can see that somewhere in between those two is really where I want to be. And I'm just doing Control Z to tap back and forth between the two. So here's a handy dandy little feature that I find to be very helpful. I will go ahead and apply whatever technique I want, and it doesn't work with every technique, but almost all of them this particular technique will work. I want to mix between, I want somewhere in between those two. If you come up here to edit, you can fade the last thing you did, and it's really cool because you can fade it with a blending mode or with an opacity. So I could get somewhere, there it was before, there it is with 100%. That's somewhere in between. Or if I wanted to get totally crazy, I could do some fun stuff. With some of these things, but I'm going for realism here, so I think I'm going to keep something fairly normal, which, the word normal, that kind of fits that, doesn't it? So I want to go, let's see here, I'm actually liking somewhere in the 50% range, so that works for me. And there I have that. And now if I wanted, I could try image adjustment auto levels, and that made it too greenish, too yellowish. Of course, it all depends on your monitor, depends on your taste. This is a little bit too red, and that's what that's telling me, actually. But if I wanted to try, I ended up doing Control Z till I got back to before I did the auto levels. I could come up here and I could try levels, I could do curves, I could play with the curves dialog box, see what's going to happen. And I'm going to cancel that, I'm going to move this picture over so I can actually see what's going on. Image adjustments, curves. And curves is kind of like the levels that we played with. Remember, you have your black slider and your white slider. Okay, your input on your white and your input on your black. You can play with that. But it's also got more of a three-dimensional quality to it. And here you can really do curves. And you can start targeting different parts of the picture if you want. It's a little bit more difficult to try and use. You've got your different color channels. So if you know, well, obviously that's a little extreme, but if you know it's too much red, you can pull down the red, but you could bump it up in certain other areas. But see how that's making her eye look very cyan or green? You have to be aware of color shifts. And one of the best ways to learn about color shifts is to go to Image, Adjustments, Color Balance. I know we've done this in a previous tutorial, but I still think it's a good way to really get to know color within Photoshop. And see if I'm watching the picture. Sometimes just a subtle nudge makes a big difference in a picture. And personally, I tend to like yellower pictures. That's just me. Ultimately, what you want to shoot for, though, is no kind of color cast at all. So it just becomes a matter of training your eye as to what looks decent to you. And of course your monitor is going to make a big difference, because what you're seeing, what looks good to you here, may not look good to somebody else on a different computer. And you'll notice that when you get to school sometimes things change tremendously. So there's a corrected version. There was the original, and there's my version. And you'll notice how the change is very subtle. There's mine. There's what I started with. And notice how I've done 2 or 3 color corrections on this. And now, if I wanted to roll the dice and see what Photoshop thinks of my color adjustment, I could do auto color and watch and see. I think that's still washing that out way too much. So it really is up to you at that point.